A single thumbnail can be the difference between your channel gaining thousands of views and gaining the momentum you need to finally break out of small channel hell. But it can be so frustrating when you finally put together what you think is a high quality thumbnail and boom, another flop. So what's the issue? Well, at 1 of 10, we've studied thousands of viral videos and helped design thumbnails that have brought in millions of views for some of the biggest creators on the platform. And let me tell you right now, a high click-through rate doesn't get you views. A HD thumbnail doesn't equal views. Great graphic design skills doesn't equal views. But there is a proven route to success on YouTube, and we're here to give you the map to get you there. Section 1, thumbnails are misunderstood. Let's begin with CTR, otherwise known as click-through rate, because it's one of the most misunderstood pieces of data when it comes to thumbnails. What if I told you that if you had the insane click-through rate of like 50%, this could actually be a massive red flag for your channel? Let me explain. When you upload a video, YouTube will do two things. First of all, the video will be pushed out to your returning audience. This could be viewers who have already watched your content and might be interested again, or subscribers to the channel. In this initial upload period, the click-through rate tends to be high due to the fact that the audience YouTube is showing your video to is already warm to your content. So a high click-through rate is great, right? Well, yes, but only if it really starts to drop in your second phase of your YouTube upload. Once YouTube is done pushing your video out to a warm audience, the algorithm finds a colder audience to promote your content to. This drives your impressions up, and due to the audience being colder, your click-through rate drops in comparison to the first audience. So what makes a high click-through rate bad? An exceptionally high click-through rate could indicate that YouTube only pushed your video out to your first audience, otherwise known as your warm audience, but then chose not to go into the second phase of promoting your video to a wider audience. This is the symptom of like one core problem, and it's why your video can have a really good thumbnail but still get little views. And the problem is shown in these examples here. Can you spot what these creators are doing wrong? These videos are a prime example of a creator using an overused idea. In other words, it's the idea that's holding back the views on their videos. By now in the entertainment niche, Ryan Trahan's idea, I tested one-star restaurants, has been done like 1,000 times already. So people are looking for new content to watch. And just to prove this to you, here's a creator that's done really well with the one-star idea format. And another one here. So it's clear now that bad ideas completely destroy what could be a good thumbnail. But you still need to learn the foundation of what makes a good thumbnail in the first place, because some thumbnails on YouTube look like this, while others look like this. It's actually best to think of a thumbnail like a nice looking sandwich. It's only a matter of time before someone comes along, takes a sandwich and eats it, right? Well, what if that sandwich was alongside 100 other tasty looking sandwiches? Why would someone choose to eat yours? What can you do to make your sandwich stand out? Is there a way to make viewers hungry for your content? What I'm getting at here is thumbnails are 80% psychology and 20% design. And if thumbnails are mostly about psychology, then we can't not think about the idea and how that idea is exactly tied to the imagery that your thumbnail is putting forward. And when it comes to thumbnails, there are actually thumbnail archetypes that have an unbreakable link with the idea that they're representing. So let's have a look at a few of these archetypes and see why they're bringing in so many views for creators. We'll start with one that's doing so well right now, and that's the every archetype. This format consists of two elements, the icon and the subtitle, and goes hand in hand with the every idea format in the education niche. Reason it works? People are hungry for knowledge in YouTube education, and a thumbnail presenting all topics from a wider subject really builds curiosity. Next up, you've got the split archetype, which is stuck to several different idea formats. You've got the classic versus idea format, before and after idea formats, right and wrong idea formats, but the basic psychology is you're looking at comparison or progression. Next, we'll take a quick look at a really simple style of thumbnail that is performing exceptionally well for creators across the platform right now. This is the negative space thumbnail. This works because it's incredibly simple, tied to idea formats such as the why it sucks format, and this is one of the purest forms of a YouTube thumbnail. In an overly saturated world of YouTube entertainment thumbnails, these also slice through the crowd with their plainer look. But there's one main reason I'm getting you to take a look at all of these thumbnails, and it's because I want you to understand why they work. What questions form in your mind when you look at them? And if you look at the idea that you've just come up with for your own YouTube channel, does the thumbnail that you've chosen to pair with it really make sense for your idea? Because if that combination is wrong, your video will fail. But what if I told you that your thumbnail might not even matter to begin with? and it's something else you need to pay attention to. Section 2, the thumbnail that no one tells you about. Would you be shocked if I told you that your thumbnail doesn't even exist for a large portion of your audience? Well, it's the truth. It actually comes down to what devices your audience is watching your content on, and it can be the difference between your channel succeeding or failing. If I pick up my phone, open YouTube, and start scrolling on the homepage, can you see what happens with all of these videos that I'm finding? The thumbnail only appears for a fraction of a second due to autoplay. So to ensure you don't lose all of those viewers who are browsing on mobile, you need to implement a second thumbnail in the first 3 to 5 seconds of your video. Whether this be replicating the thumbnail exactly, or simply showing a very similar imagery with visual hooks to pique a viewer's curiosity is up to you. But whether you're working on your video's thumbnail or your second thumbnail, you've got to know how to develop a visual formula that works well for your channel. Section 3, the visual formula. You see, there's a misconception about thumbnail design, and it's thinking that you need to use the same colors and branding of other successful YouTubers to get people to click. But there's a problem with that. There are standards and good practice when it comes to thumbnails, and using some of those standards to your advantage, such as the red background with white text to highlight words, or making sure there aren't more than 3 elements in a thumbnail to prevent overcrowding is great, but if you're doing the same thing as so many other creators, your thumbnail no longer stands out against the crowd, especially when you're a small channel with no audience to click on your videos yet. So to prevent you from making the same thumbnail mistakes, let's go through the thumbnail audit that we use with creators all the time to make sure that they have top performing thumbnails, followed by some tips on how to stand out. Can you spot what is wrong with this thumbnail? First of all, there is far too much to look at. It's overcrowded with text. Some text is too small, and I have the house to look at, the trees, the person, but it's all too much in just one small image that most viewers will barely even look at for a fraction of a second before moving on. Now, this doesn't mean you can't have busier looking thumbnails. There are formats that appear busier, like the every format that we covered earlier. But like I explained, this features only 2 elements, the icon and the text, and overall is easily understood. Let's take a look at a second thumbnail here. What's wrong with this one? Well, the big problem here is I have no idea what to look at. My eye just keeps bouncing around and I'm confused at what I'm exactly looking at. When you have no hierarchy when it comes to the imagery in your thumbnail, trying to visually navigate the thumbnail is going to be really difficult for your audience. You have to remember that most viewers are simply glancing at your thumbnail before deciding on whether to watch your video or not, so hook them straight away with just simple main subjects. Now for this next example, I actually went and ruined someone's really good thumbnail in Photoshop. Can you spot which one I photoshopped? I'm sure you guessed this one. If you're going to use font, your font style must reflect the style of your content and be as clear as possible. But there's one way I could make this thumbnail even worse, and it's doing this. I don't know why some creators make the mistake of overcomplicating design. Remember to take out anything that distracts your viewers away from what will get them to click on your video in the first place. If you can take a more simple approach to give more clarity to a thumbnail, do it. Now, instead of attacking thumbnails, let's spot what Ryan is doing here so well. I'll give you a clue, and it's something to do with his face. There's something called the picture superiority effect, which is the fact that images, particularly of faces, are more likely to be remembered than text, making them powerful tools in advertising and content previews. Using a face alongside an emotional expression that matches the context of your content is one way to increase your click-through rate. But next up, we're going to talk about something I like to call the conversation. I want you to have a look at these 2 thumbnails and tell me which design you feel like is more interesting. Pay close attention to the title in combination with the thumbnail. You may have noticed the different approaches these thumbnails have taken with text. In the first example, the text simply repeats the title in the thumbnail and doesn't add to anything the title has already given us. As for the second, the text, write stories like this, bounces off the title and generates more curiosity for the viewer. Always think of your title and your thumbnail as a conversation rather than a repetition. So you might understand what elements make up a good thumbnail, but how do you put a twist on it that makes it stand out from the crowd? And the answer to that is actually really simple, and it might sound a bit cheesy, but it's all down to creativity. Featuring a character in your video from a show or an anime, maybe instead of using the same images everyone else has used countless times over, draw your own. Even a stickman version can do well. Have you noticed everyone in your niche using a darker color scheme for all of their videos? Go in the opposite direction so you can instantly distinguish yourself from your competition. It's funny and kind of annoying because what small channels have to do to get attention is a bit different to what bigger, more established channels can get away with doing. You see, once you've picked up some subscribers or some momentum and you've got a bit of a warmer audience, trying a more standard format might actually do really well for your channel. But early on, it might just not be enough to stand out and get that click. But the real question is, what is it that those pro YouTubers do that is so different to the average YouTuber? And what puts them in that different playing field in the first place? Section 4, the pro YouTuber approach. There are many reasons why the biggest creators on YouTube do so well, but one of those reasons is the way they organize and plan their thumbnails is completely different to what most creators do. When starting off on YouTube, most creators will do this: come up with an idea for a video, spend a good chunk of time scripting the video, film the video, spend another massive amount of time editing the video, quickly put together a thumbnail, and upload. If this sounds like you, then your channel might be in trouble. You see, there are two things in that list that most of your time should be allocated to, and one of them is not editing. We've worked with some of YouTube's biggest creators, and most of their time is spent on refining their ideas and packaging, that being the title and thumbnail, before even thinking about recording. We're literally talking hours and hours of work making sure that number one, the idea is a good one and data backed, and second, making several different versions of a thumbnail to reflect on and decide what might work the best. The advantage that big channels have over smaller channels is they already have loads of data on what might be working for their audience and their channel. So choosing a thumbnail format that worked in the past and doing it again is likely to perform well. But this isn't the case for small channels. When starting out, it's good to experiment with different styles of thumbnails before you have any kind of established audience and just see what works. And then when something does work, you double down on it. But what happens when you know the quality of your thumbnails are good, but you're just not getting any clicks or views? Well, it might be down to common mistakes that small creators make every day. When uploading videos to smaller channels, there's an interesting thing that I've seen happen with thumbnails that I like to call the second wind. When a small channel doesn't have that much of a warm audience to first of all react to their upload, YouTube tries to find an audience who's interested in the video. Sometimes that first wave of people that YouTube finds just aren't interested in the video. The frustrating thing is the data you get back from that first wave of people might suggest to you that your video is bad. And that might be the case if your idea and thumbnail actually suck. But if you've got data and good principles behind everything that you're doing, just hold on a moment. The second wind is where YouTube goes out again and finds a second wave to interact with your video. And because YouTube tested the first batch, realizing that there was a particular viewer that wasn't interested in your content, the second wave can actually start boosting your CTR and video views significantly because the algorithm better understands who might enjoy your content. So a video that starts off with a 2 or 3% click-through rate can jump up to 5% plus in the second wave. But what does that mean for when you're uploading? Well, in the context of you having a small channel and putting a video out, if you got data-backed kind of ideas and thumbnail designs, if your first batch of impressions results in a low CTR, it doesn't mean you should immediately go and switch out your thumbnail straight away. And on the topic of switching thumbnails, let's talk about A/B testing and why it might completely kill your video's chance of success. So let's take thumbnail 1 and thumbnail 2 that you're going to A/B test. If you don't have a ton of experience or you're a small channel, it's possible that one of these thumbnails might be okay and one of them might be really bad. If you A/B test them and let's say the first 1,000 YouTube impressions are a split 50-50 between the two, 50% of your impressions have now been completely wasted on a bad thumbnail, which could have been used to give more momentum to your video. If you're really looking to A/B test, my advice is to stick to a very similar thumbnail style for the test and only experiment changing the text or a slight expression on your face or something. Section 5, thumbnail magic. But your click-through rate or performance won't even matter if you don't actually practically know how to put a high-quality thumbnail together in the first place. And there's paid options and free options when it comes to thumbnail design. The first free option is Canva. Canva is great for an easy drag and drop system, providing tons of free graphics and clean text for you to use in your thumbnail. Just bear in mind to get the background remover and access to all graphics, you've got to upgrade to the paid version. But another option for free imagery is actually ChatGPT. And you can even generate transparent thumbnail assets similar to even Mr. Beast with just a few prompts. Take this thumbnail, for example. If I ask ChatGPT to look at the thumbnail and generate a PNG asset for me similar to the car in the thumbnail, I get this. And then I can take this and literally drag and drop it into Canva. But those who want to get real serious about thumbnail design and have the most control over their imagery, you just need to use Photoshop. There is a free version, Photopea, on the internet, but Photoshop is just like the king of thumbnail design. Plot twist though, if you want to steal someone's thumbnail format, you can actually do that with ChatGPT as well. In this example here, I took Mike Shake's fire sword thumbnail and turned it into an ice sword. ChatGPT can't replicate your face, So I ended up photoshopping mine on, but the result is actually surprisingly good. But putting all of the technicalities of like creating thumbnails aside, there's actually one last thumbnail hack that gives you the ability to resurrect a dead channel. Section 6, thumbnail investments. If you head into YouTube Analytics and drag your mouse over impressions, each day if this number is still going up and not completely dead, you still have hope. Sometimes creators upload YouTube videos that they spent so long on and they just don't get any views, but it's not necessarily sometimes because the video is bad. It's because they package the video really badly. One approach that pro YouTubers take all the time is if a video flops, they repeatedly change that title and thumbnail and test it through different periods of time to see if they can kind of resurrect the video and build momentum again. And let me tell you right now, we do this with clients all the time. On our podcast channel, the episode with Will Tennyson actually took off once we made a couple of thumbnail changes after it got stuck on like around 1,500 views. My advice for you is first of all, look at videos that had a higher retention than usual. It just means that people were actually interested in watching the video, and then play around with the packaging of those videos first to see if you can repackage them in a way that makes sense, because you don't want to make new clicks feel like they've kind of been clickbaited. So have a look at the intro again, make sure that the intro matches the new packaging that you've slapped onto the video, and then all you've got to do is wait a little while to see if the views start rolling in. And the great thing about this is if you do change the packaging and something takes off, you've now got a thumbnail format that you can use for a new video that will be instantly recognizable to that new audience that you've just brought in. But you see, pulling in an audience with a style of thumbnail is only one step of the YouTube journey. And if you don't know how to keep people watching, well, your attention will suck, and that will signal to the YouTube algorithm that your videos just aren't worth watching. So if you want to prevent that from happening, you might want to click on this video here.